Hey all, we'll be starting in a few minutes, but for those of you who want to live tweet, I know I've said this like 4 times for the people who were super early, but the Wi-Fi is SCH guest and the login and password is book. No, don't do that. BOOK. Right. Hey. So we're going to get started in 2 minutes, but again, for the people who came in after I said this, what feels like a millionth time now, the Wi-Fi is SCH guest, and login and password are both book, like what you read, Farah? B-O-O-K. But you can get creative with that. You just won't be let into the Wi-Fi, so.
Hi, everybody. I thought I'd do something different and tell you what the name and the password is for the login. I don't think we've heard that enough times. Thank you, April. I think we all know that for now. My name is Steve Buffone, and I'm the chair of the board of Do Something, which has been my great pleasure. Yay, Do Something, yay, board. It's been my great pleasure, and I'm the only person around here who was involved in day one of Do Something, and that was just about 20 years ago. So yeah, I started when I was 14. It was great. It's been an incredible ride from the early days. Do Something, a lot of you know this, but it was founded by two great guys, Andrew Shue and Mike Sanchez, and they had an incredible idea to get kids involved in their communities in a way that was hip and cool and sustainable. And the journey's taken a lot of different, I guess we've taken a lot of different paths over the years. But really started to hit our stride 10 years ago, as Nancy and I were just discussing, with the arrival of our fabulous CEO, Nancy Lublin. Nancy. And we've grown in that time to clearly now be the leading and largest organization for teenagers and social change in the country and the world. So it's been just a real honor and a ton of fun for me to be involved. Just some numbers I wanted to mention to everybody. If you look at sort of where Do Something stands right now. At the end of 2012, we had about 1.9 million members of Do Something. Of those members, 1.4 million are really active members who we know, kids that engaged and reported back that they were involved and took action in their community. We're hoping to drive that 1.4 million number to about 2.5 million in 2013, and we know we're going to get there. About 1,200 Do Something clubs in schools, over 300,000 Facebook followers, about 600,000 Twitter followers. One of the things that we're very well known for, and I know many of you in this room are supporters or participants or sponsors of Do Something campaigns, and we had about 24 of those in 2012, and we'll have about the same number next year in 2013. Some of our best knowns, one that's currently running is probably the marquee project in terms of being well known and also the impact. Teens for Genes, yay, yay, yay for Teens for Genes. In partnership with Aeropostale, which has been a great corporate partner of ours. Last year, and we're on track again this year, to collect over 1 million pairs of blue jeans for homeless teenagers. And one of the things that I never realized until we started Teens for Genes is fully a third of the homeless in America are 18 or younger. And so DoSomething in its inimitable fashion went out and said, what can we do? What would resonate with these kids? What would make a difference? And we found that they wanted to have a pair of blue jeans. So that grew from substantial effort initially, but it's pretty amazing to know that we collect in 3 weeks, just over a 3-week period, 1 million pairs of jeans for teenagers. So that's a great example of great concept, executed incredibly well by the DoSomething staff, involving a lot of kids, obviously, and getting them involved in their community in a cause that they care about, which is another critical thing. The way we design our programs, it's certainly not anybody my age or even the age of the young, very young DoSomething staff sitting around trying to figure out what's important to teens. We ask them. They tell us what's important, and we design our causes and our campaigns around the kids. So Teens for Genes, Give a Spit, fantastic campaign, 50 cans, aluminum recycling, the Battle for the Bands, Green Your School. You hear about all these during the course of the day, and they're fantastic, and we're really just very, very, very proud of them. Just wanted to introduce the concept of DoSomething, our annual meeting, which we really love to have. It's such a privilege to have so many supporters and friends of DoSomething in the house. We're all about sort of transparency and letting you know what we're doing and how we're doing it. And hopefully for some of you, today will also be a learning opportunity. We learned a lot of things about how to connect with kids. The best way to do it, as many of you know as well, we're engaged in a shift to a mobile strategy, and that's going incredibly well in terms of engaging with kids through texting, et cetera. So we hope that in addition to tooting our horn a little bit, which is interesting to us, maybe less so for you, but will also be instructive today, and you'll learn a lot about how to get kids involved in changing their communities, which is what DoSomething is all about, and we're proud to say we think we've executed on very well now on our 20th anniversary. So that's all I have to say. I'm going to kick it off by introducing a couple of DoSomething techies who are Jeff and Bob. We're going to talk about, I love the title of this, the dot organism, creating a culture of testing. Thank you.
Hello?
Hello? All right. So, thank you all for the warm welcome. You're probably wondering why you have 2 data scientists here and you're looking at a biology term. And as Steve just went through all the amazing numbers we've done over the year, it's primarily our responsibility to be staring at sheets after graph of numbers moving around, moving in mysterious ways. And for us, it's really easy to get lost in the fact that these numbers actually represent things. They represent our users, they represent the time our staff puts in, they represent our funders, money at work. So not thinking about things as numbers, but actually thinking of the whole operation as an organism has been a very helpful mindset for us as data scientists. So the definition of organism is a form of life composed of mutually interdependent parts that maintain various vital processes. And it's from the Greek organon, which means a tool or an instrument. And we think we fit both of these definitions quite well. We have 2.4 million teens that did something, 2 million that did something directly through our website, and we're a tool for them to achieve these actions.
So this fits in really well with the purpose of DoSomething. Our goal is to help the largest number of teens to make the biggest possible impact. So we know that 93% of teens say they want to do something, but only 22% do. And so our role as data scientists is to close that gap. And one of the best ways to do this is to think about our users as a nervous system. And so That means that when we touch a stove, we want to know whether that stove is hot. Or when we eat something, we want to know whether that's wasabi or ice cream. And we're going to get feedback from our members. That's going to help to inform the future campaigns that we run. So to the degree that we get information from our users, that's going to make us more successful in offering volunteer opportunities that they really want.
So one of the things we're super proud of this year is that it's been 20 years since Do Something kicked off, which is an amazing feat for any organization to stay long, but we've really transformed. And we've transformed from a brick and mortar organization that had offices across the country and to put out a physical magazine to 10 years ago an online company, and then more recently an online company that is really powering and leveraging big data. So what's this evolution looked like? And so going back before we had a website, we would have very much on-the-ground presences around the country. You'd have an office in San Diego, you'd have an office in Chicago, and they would push out our programs and volunteer opportunities in a very direct manner. And this is an excellent system for getting really immediate feedback because the people giving the ideas are also seeing the people doing the ideas. But it doesn't scale that easily. So we moved beyond that and we moved to a website. And now we're reaching 1 million people on our website. We're talking to them digitally over things beyond magazines. We're sending out text to 1 million users each month. And this allowed us to really send from our 40 people in office to millions, whereas the Boy Scouts, who also reach roughly 2.4 million people, take 300,000 people to reach those teens. So it's a scale play, but what's lost is the communication back to us. How do we know what we're doing is the right things for the right users at the right time, at the right frequency? So occasionally they'll send us messages, they'll send us emails, occasionally we have the capacity to do field work, but oftentimes it's a black box. We would create something and send it out and hope it would work. But with data, we no longer just have to rely on that intuition. We get constant feedback coming into us. So digital plus the data that comes back has taken us beyond just being a .org and has made us this .organism, or at least that's how we like to think about it in the data department, where we're not just pushing things out. Every time we give a message, we can see, was it like more or less than the one before? This new campaign opportunity that we send out at 6 a.m. to kids in the East Coast, we can see how they react and pivot by the time we send it out to the West Coast 3 hours later. So what used to take weeks or months of follow-up surveys, now we can do in the process of a single day. So keeping the organism healthy.
Great, so there are 4 major steps that we follow to monitor, to keep the organism healthy. The first one on there is monitor. So that is, what are our users, what are our members saying to us? Are we tracking that? And then within that information that they're sending in, so they're sending us messages. We have over 800,000 people that we're texting with every week. And many of those are sending in messages, hey, I love this campaign, or I wish I had this opportunity around doing an environmental cleanup. When we get those messages in, what we can do is detect patterns. So is there a group of users that's really highly engaged with us? And can we help some of our other users to become so highly engaged? So what we do once we detect a group like this, we can say, let's test some messaging to get more people on our list really highly engaged. And the fourth thing we do is once we test things and find something that really works, a message or a campaign, then let's roll that out to our entire list of users, get even more people volunteering with us. So I'm going to run through a quick example. The first stage, again, is monitoring. So this is collecting the data. And one of the biggest pieces of data we have is on our mobile list. So we're texting with 830,000 people. And one critical piece of information we have is the phone number. So all these people have given us their phone number. What's something else that we could know, and the question for the audience, what's something we can know about our users just based on their phone number? What's something else we know about each person who's given us a mobile number? Yeah? Their location. So yeah, perfect. So based on their area code, we have a very good sense of where these users actually are. And we actually found a 94% match between our teens' area codes and where they actually live. So for our demographic, it's a very good match. Something else we know, just because we're actively communicating with these people, we know for a lot of these people their first name. And then based on that, there's a 98%, we have a 98% probability of knowing their gender. So we start to build out this profile on each one of our members. And that gives us a lot of data. So now we're tracking over 100 variables of these 800,000 plus members, and we start to be able to ask really detailed and important questions that inform what volunteer opportunities we do. So here's an example of a pattern we detected in our data. So here's another question for the audience. What we looked at is retention. So meaning in certain cities, we found that our users are likely to stay with us longer, they're likely to engage with us more than other cities. Does anybody have a guess as to what our best city is in terms of retention? So users are staying with us a long time and engaging with us. New York, Portland, Utah, Chicago. All right. The answer is, so actually, right down here. That is McAllen, Texas, which I had never heard of until now. And McAllen, Texas, a couple quick facts. So what we're looking at is the dark green are our highest retention cities, moving towards dark red, which is our lowest retention cities. And the gap's pretty substantial. So high retention, we're talking about 80% of our users still being with us and engaging, down to in the 50s at the low end. So 2 fun facts about McAllen, Texas. 1, 79% Latino, 1% white. 2, it has the lowest per capita income of any major metropolitan area in the US. So that's McAllen. And when we look further into the data, we start to see a pattern. Looking at our top 5 cities and our bottom 5 cities, all of our top 5 cities are majority minority and skew towards low income. On our bottom 5 cities for retention, we see overall less diverse cities. And so this allows us to inform what type of volunteer opportunities we actually offer. So we've tested some of our campaigns and see how they've performed in these different cities. For example, I Heart Dad, which is a campaign that focuses on getting young people to get their father's blood pressure checked. That did really well in places like McAllen and San Bernardino, which are those majority minority cities. And some of the patterns there is it focuses on helping a family member, and it focuses on health. Same with Give a Spit, focused on helping individuals and family members and focused on health. Whereas other campaigns tend to do well in places like Provo, Salt Lake. The Hunt is an example where we had 7 different volunteer opportunities that our teens would do over the course of the week that focused on environmental cleanup or trying to be vegetarian for a day or visiting an animal shelter. And those where you're more out helping the community, working on environmental issues, those tend to do better in our less diverse cities like Provo, Salt Lake, Boston. And so what we can do now is actually prescribe ideas for new campaigns to engage our most engaged users. So for example, what do we offer for our most engaged users? Well, we're thinking about something around diabetes and dancing. So that is so diabetes, a health issue, impacts the family, and a big issue in Latino communities. Dancing is a popular form of exercise associated with health that will decrease incidence of diabetes. And so we're thinking about campaigns that will engage our highest retention users.
And once we've gone through this one example, and imagine this example running on every channel of communication in all parts of our site, it doesn't just end with coming up with a new idea. It's about circling back to the very top and monitoring how these users respond to the new product, detecting any abnormalities, finding what things we can test or pivot on, and giving new prescriptions, new recommendations. So it's a constant cycle. And the arrow is really all these learnings getting pushed back in to propel our organization forward. So what does this look like in total for the last year? And what you're looking at here is the growth in our campaigns and their success in reaching our audience. And you'll see that the typical campaign was up nearly 500% in the number of kids who were able to get signed up for it. And the number... And beyond that, because we were also able to scale and run more campaigns, more relevant campaigns, the total number of teens signed up for our campaigns was up nearly 600%, with 837% of the teens we were able to reach being new to us. And one of the big insights behind this was as we shifted to mobile, we're able to detect that when using mobile as a form of communication, our users treated it far more socially. So we started testing ideas for them to bring their friends along on their ride. And now every time we get someone to sign up for our mobile list, we get 1 to 2 of their friends to sign up as well. So we've been able to scale just by detecting how people like different forms of communication. And at the end of the year, we've been able to reach beyond the 1.4 million people signed up for their campaigns, nearly 1.5 million teens doing our campaigns alone. Thank you. Next up, we have Aria Finger, our awesome COO and chief old person in training. She just had a birthday, and she's going to be leading a panel on teens and social change.
I'm so excited to be here. One of the main mottos we have at Do Something is that the best ideas are not in the room. And that means that in our office, we know we need to go outside the office to talk to experts. It turns out that right now, the best ideas are in this room because we have the most badass panel coming to you right now. We're going to be talking about teens and social movements. So, Clay Shirky, Seth Godin, and Lee Brenner, come on up here. So if you don't know these guys, you absolutely should. We read their tweets, their blogs, their websites on a daily basis. And the other amazing thing about them is even though they're superstars, they come into the Do Something office often to give us insight on how we can make our social movements even better. One of the things we've been talking about recently is that everyone's talking about Facebook and Twitter. How do you get teens on them? How do you use them? What do you do? But the forgotten child seems to be YouTube. It is the website that teenagers spend so much time on every day, more time than Facebook, and yet a lot of people aren't thinking about it. So I wanted to turn it over to the panel and ask you guys, how should not-for-profits be thinking about YouTube to make social change? And or is there an amazing YouTube campaign that you can think of that we should be learning from? Okay?
The YouTube campaign is Kony 2012. There is nothing that's even a close second to what they achieved. And there are all kinds of issues and problems with that set of goals and with characterizing a very complex conflict in a very simple way. But just as pure technique, that video is extraordinary. And I'd encourage you, if you want to learn from that, I'd encourage you to do two things. One, sit down and watch the video listening to what your data scientist just said, which is an implicitly social attitude towards content. Don't think, do I like this video, is it well made, but rather, are there things in this video that make me lean into the social opportunity? And when you look at it that way, before they've even told you who Kony is, before they've even told you what they want to do, literally the first action you see someone take in that video is someone rolling a mouse over a submit button and clicking. So it sets the stage for, we expect you to lean into and not away from this video. Just the filmmaking is extraordinary. The other thing I'd encourage you to do is find Gilad Lotan's study of the social spread of the Kony 2012 video. One of the wonderful things about being a teacher is if anyone has taken even one of your classes, you get to take credit for their work for the rest of their lives. And Gilad, I'm pleased to say, is a former student, although in this case it's all his work. But he is the chief data scientist for social flow, and he studies social flow. And when you look at the media spread of the Kony 2012 video, they were aiming for 500,000 views, and they got 100 million. I mean, it was orders of magnitude. It did orders of magnitude better than what they wanted. What they found was that these things did not spread in a thin film across the United States. It's exactly what we're hearing about the mobile signups. Whole clusters of people would get engaged all at once, and he looked at the hottest clusters. If you think about the media landscape in the United States in its kind of classic way, you think, well, there's New York and LA, and then there's a couple of other little places. When you look at the Kony 2012 video, Arkansas looms large as a source of flow for that video. Now, Arkansas isn't at the top of people's lists for major media hub, but now it is, because the density and engagement of the people receiving that video then turned into an engagement and density for people sending that video out. I think those two messages, the content itself knows that it's asking people to lean forward, and the social clusters that have amplifying effects may well not be where you expect them. Those I think, are the things that are really important about Coney.
And I think on that point, though, Clay started with that it was a very unique experience, and even their goal of 500,000 is probably more than most videos will ever get, right? And the other thing that YouTube provides is the ability to test things out, but also it's important when you're creating a YouTube video for your campaign, think about the things that you look at every day. They're oftentimes mostly funny. Maybe you can take a chance and do something that is somewhat out of the box than potentially your board of directors may want you to do, or other things. But you can do things that can spread. Coney was also I think 30 minutes long. Is that right? Yeah. Most videos should be realistically under a few minutes, right? And you don't want it, because most people won't watch them. And this was obviously a unique experience, but YouTube allows you to be able to test something very quickly. It'll give you data, and if it's not working, because you can, on your phone, you can make a video right now. You can try something new very quickly.
May I chime in?
Absolutely.
First, I want to say that one of the nicest things that ever happens to me is I'm mistaken for you. So that's not going to happen today, unfortunately.
Back at you. You have better socks.
I do have better socks, always. I'm really glad we're keying in on Coney to start. The first thing to understand that I want to point out is they cheated on purpose, and fine. But Arkansas wasn't an accident, and North Carolina wasn't an accident. That Coney spread because it was pre-wired, and in the first couple hours, tens or hundreds of thousands of people were spreading it because they had been signed up and had given permission and integrated into the community before the video even occurred. And the reason that that's important to understand is this. The mindset of the traditional marketer, and there are some of you in the room today, is that human beings are consumers and that they are captive, that their job is to consume what you make and that you can go get them whenever you want. So marketers say, oh, YouTube, everyone's spending all this time on YouTube. Let's put more stuff on YouTube. It's like TV, but free. And in fact, it's not like TV at all, because 99% of all YouTube videos are never seen by just about anyone, which is not true even of reality TV shows. They are seen by someone because there's a scarce number of channels. There isn't scarcity of YouTube. What that means is you have to work to earn attention. And people in marketing aren't used to that. They're used to paying for attention. They're not used to earning attention. And that's a giant step forward. So the huge mobile footprint of DoSomething is a priceless asset, not if it's going to be used NPR style to churn and burn people, but if it used over time to put ideas out to people who are inclined to believe you, like you, and spread them. Which leads to the second half of what I wanted to riff on. There's a huge difference between awareness and action. And you can certainly use Coney as an example of that, which is 100 million people were momentarily aware. But the number of people who actually took action and were changed or caused change was tiny. So as you wrestle with an infinite media universe where awareness seems to be the goal because you don't have any or enough, that's not really why you're doing any of this. You're doing it because you want to get people to take action. So putting something into the world that gets awareness is useless if it doesn't also get them to take action.
Well, so that brings up an important point. You talked about how watching the video isn't action. So everyone's talking about clicktivism, slacktivism, all these different things. Does posting a Facebook status count? Does posting, and it gets better video. Isn't that action? Because that's changing people's minds and perhaps changing people's futures?
Well, you get to decide what action is before you start, but you're not allowed to do it after, right? And so I think that it gets better. Clearly, the action that we were hoping for is just a general raising of the foundation of dignity and respect and hope, and that's enough. Whereas if you're doing a fundraiser and you call it a fundraiser, but you don't get the cash, it doesn't matter how many Facebook likes you got, you didn't succeed.
Right. And shout-outs for World Hunger on Facebook don't do much. Nancy Fraser, who, like everyone named Nancy, is a genius, has written a lot about the public sphere, right? The idea of the group of people who have some purchase on politics. And in thinking about the media environment, exactly the way Seth is talking about, she divides publics up into strong publics and weak publics. Strong publics are publics that can get information and take the relevant action. Weak publics are publics that can get the relevant information and not take action. So if you are launching a political campaign, then action will be getting people to vote. If you are trying to essentially raise public awareness of anti-gay bullying and the fact that it gets better, then you have a much larger, strong public because you have many more people who can take action. So I think one of the ways to think about this is don't kid yourself that you're addressing a strong public if you're addressing a weak public. So the It Gets Better campaign works because simply an awareness can both make people feel better in a personal way, but also can make them more pro-social, have more pro-social actions in that direction. If you are trying to raise money or get people to call their senators or to take other kinds of action, you have to make sure that their capabilities line up with the action you're asking them to take. And so your question as asked, I think, is really, the answer is, does collectivism work? And the answer is yes, but only under circumstances where a click matters. If you're going after a brand where their public image is itself people who have access to the public sphere can get to, absolutely. If you're going after a politician, somewhat on the same logic, but less so. If you're going after an individual who is secured from the vicissitudes of either the voters or the market, probably not. And instead of asking about the technique, you have to ask, how does the technique line up with the goal?
And I actually just
I
want...
want to just riff one more little bit, but I want to let Lee go if you want to. You're good? All right, so I want you to imagine it's 1981, which most of you weren't even born, but there certainly wasn't an active, ongoing discussion of gay rights or the entire interaction with the gay community. Well, in college that year, someone, I have no idea who it was, put up 500 Xerox signs on trees with staples. That was the old version of Facebook, all throughout the campus where I went to school. And it was the most brilliant social media campaign to this day that I have ever seen. And it was Monday, and they were blue signs, and in black type it said, Wednesday is wear blue jeans if you're gay day. That's all it said. And it was fabulous because I saw it and said, I'm wearing blue jeans on Wednesday. And other people saw it and said, I don't want to wear blue jeans on Wednesday, but if I don't, what will that say about me? And 4,500 people had a conversation over the next 48 hours about what it meant to be thought of as gay for the cost of 500 sheets of Xerox paper. So that's a version of slacktivism in that it led to exactly what the organizer wanted, which was merely a conversation. And the magic of do something, right in the name, is that's a beginning, but that's not sufficient. And that the goal is to let a 15-year-old come to the conclusion that she is, in fact, not only capable of tweeting, not only capable of making a video, but actually capable of moving atoms in the world to make something better. And the lesson that goes to that teen is at least as important as the genes that are donated or the spit that comes in.
Absolutely. So I wanted to track back to something you said earlier about one of the brilliant things about Kony was how they launched it. So they seeded it on all these college campuses often throughout the people that they knew. But something you said recently, actually, Seth, was that launch is not where you stop, it's where you start. And so the problem that a lot of marketers have is they have this great big launch plan, they launch it, and then they walk away and walk out the door and might say, oh, this isn't working, and they don't do anything more. What should we all be doing after the launch? What should we be watching, tweaking, pivoting, changing after we get that thing out the door? Lee?
Well, I think one example, even with Kony, I mean, they just had a big rally in Washington, D.C. to get people to actually finally take that physical action beyond spreading a video and coming to a place and actually, trying to get members of Congress and people to actually do something, no pun intended. But the idea was that there is that second part of the thing, of that action. And I think that's one of the main things is when you're doing that strategy of, all right, here's how we're going to seed it, here's how we're going to launch it, and have different options of, because you don't necessarily know what exactly is going to happen, as even with Kony, they didn't know it was going to be as big as it was. So you need to have, two options. Well, what happens if we, the amazing thing happens and we are able to do this, but what happens, what can we ask people to do if only 1,000 people actually see the video or do something? How do we actually re-engage them? What can we tweet to them? What can we use our mobile devices to do? Can we hit them up a week later and say, all right, did you not see this video? Or, re-engage them somehow so that they have, something on the top of their mind, because, my father always used to say to me as a kid, out of sight, out of mind. And especially in this era with the internet, it's even more important to be in the front of people's minds, because 3 days later they'll forget about it.
It's funny, the 3 days later problem. That's so much the problem that marketers think of themselves as facing, because they're used to, as Seth said, they're used to buying the audience rather than earning the attention. One thing I'm really struck by about the logic of launch is that every major social thing we can see online, Facebook, Twitter, Wikipedia, whatever, started small but good, and the effort went into making it bigger, rather than starting large and mediocre and having the effort go into making it better. Wikipedia, they knew that they were onto something when it had a dozen articles, but they could see what the culture was doing. So often advertisers say, we'll launch at scale and we'll take the engagement we can get, right? And in many ways, what we see in a social environment is the actual density of the conversation between people and the degree to which me forwarding you something that I think you'll like is reaffirming a social connection, means that it's often better to launch with engagement and work on scale than the other way around. And so the launch, and Seth has, I think, written about this beautifully, the launch mentality assumes that scale is the important thing, and that engagement is a side effect that you're happy to have as much of as possible, but it's not what you work on. Part of the answer, I think, Lee, to your conundrum is, what would make them not forget me in 3 days? What would be an unforgettable transaction? Because if I can get a group engaged around that, then small is just the starting point. But again, the launch logic kind of rolls over that. And in fact, undoes a lot of the potential of thinking about engagement first and scale later.
So commitment is the key word here, right? So you guys have been around for 20 years, 10 years in this online incarnation. But along the way, plenty of things didn't work. But when one of them doesn't work, you don't say, it's all over, start a new organization. You are committed to the journey. So if we look at the Sprints and the Aeropostales and the Starbucks and everything else in the world, they are committed to a process and a journey, whereas one given project might not get you where you want. So the challenge of marketing today is we're going to commit to this process, and the tactics might change as we try to get to scale, but we don't question the journey. We just keep going back to the core benefit that we're trying to sell to people. And too often, because gimmicks, so you see Psy have a hit that gets seen by 1 billion or whatever, how many people on Earth. If it hadn't worked, was he going to switch to becoming a drummer, right? The fact is, you say, this is what I'm doing, this is how I do it. I might be willing to change some of the other elements of it, but it's my audience, it's my connection to the audience I already have, as you're talking about, it's the quality, then scale will come if I persist. I know the first 4 years I was blogging, no one read my blog. And so it's, at the 5th year it starts, this is fun, but you have to be willing to do it for 4 years before you say that.
But does that quality piece fly? I feel like right now everyone's talking about just get a beta out the door, launch with anything, and then you can tweak it. Does that fly in the face of what you guys are saying about getting quality out the door? Does it really matter what that first iteration, if it's buggy or not?
Well, I think it's a hybrid. I mean, I work we have a news website, so we are constantly trying to get stuff out very quickly, but we have actually talked about that theory that we want it to be, we started small and with quality content, so it's not just doing 50 articles a day that are 3 lines, but maybe we do a little bit of research and it takes a little bit longer and we do 15 articles so that they are quality and we can feel good about it. But there is still that, because of the medium that we're working in and because you're dealing with the internet, you can't take 3 months to try and do a video if you need it to be out in 3 weeks.
There's also a difference between content and service. So you switched in a way to talking about software when you talked about getting things out the door and buggy. If it's good, then if the experience is good, the basic experience is good, then it doesn't matter if it's buggy. And if the basic experience is not good, then it doesn't matter if it's not buggy, right? Which is to say that what's now often called the minimum viable product, which is to say that core of things that you're offering people as a basic experience, if that is good, right? In the beginning, what you could do with Twitter was you could tweet. Full stop. There were no hashtags, there was no @replies, there was no archive, there was no search, nothing, no firehose, nothing. It was Twitter. You used to be able to log into the front page of Twitter and see what everybody had tweeted in the last 5 minutes. But that was good enough. So a big part of it on the software side is minimum viable product. The other is that the trade-off for being able to ship a less fully finished product is that your early users should see you acting on their behalf, because they will reward you enormously if they see you saying, well, we had planned to do X as our next feature, but clearly our users want Y. If you communicate with them and if you show them those features, and in many cases, if you just communicate that you care while it's happening. Katarina Fake, one of the great conceptualizers of these community functions, the co-founder of Flickr, said you have to greet the first 10,000 users personally. Right? They have to see the owners coming in and saying, hey, that's a great photograph if you looked over here. They spent a lot of time just thanking people for using Flickr. And the software attitude, if it's just we ship it out the door, it's as if it's shrink wrapped, but it's not really, but we're not going to pay attention to the users, kind of doesn't matter. Because you're giving up, or that's not the way to do it, because you're giving up your really big opportunity. You only have a small group of users one time. That's the time you can get to know those people and help them create a culture of recruitment and caring and getting ready to success for the long haul. That in ways is more important than the bug fixes themselves.
What if you didn't do that? Can you get it back? What if you didn't thank the first 10,000 users?
Well, I want to be really clear about buggy, right? The reason that most minimum viable products aren't very good and that the most media is buggy, if it is, it's not because it's buggy. It's because you're afraid. And it's compromised because everyone had to agree. And if it's one person's singular vision, someone who knows how to see and connect, it doesn't matter if there's a typo. Right? But if 400 people have poured over it and made it boring, that's what the real bug is. Now, if you've blown it, the point is there's still 100 million people in the community and there's still 7 million teenagers, or however many it is. So you're going to be able to, you will get a second chance to make a first impression on someone else. But the lesson to be learned is it's okay to fail. In fact, we just did. Let's fail with sophistication this time by letting someone with a voice say what they have to say, as opposed to having it be the outcome of a pasteurizing meeting.
Wikipedia is the second chance. Wikipedia was the Hail Mary play for a failed online encyclopedia effort called Newpedia. And after 9 months, they had the boring making process, right? They had a 7-step process, which, as anybody who's been in a bureaucracy knows, means that there's 7 different points at which things can grind to a halt. And that's mostly what things did on Newpedia. They mostly ground to a halt, and so they got no articles after 9 months of work. And just before shutting the thing down, they said, well, I don't know, let's try this wiki thing.
They're teenagers.
Yeah, all right. I don't know, let's try this wiki thing. And they went to their users, and they didn't say, we have had this brilliant new brainstorm. They said, they used their personal social capital. They said, look, just do me a favor. Just go here and try this. It'll take all of 10 minutes. And that attitude of, we've built this thing, we've built this huge process, we're not going to have a whole mea culpa, we're not going to have a whole backward-looking thing, but we're also not going to pretend like everything's fine. We're going to go ask you, because we all came here to do something, why don't we try this other thing? So Wikipedia, the 4th most trafficked site in the world, and the only one in the top 10 that's not commercial, was the second chance.
Cool. One thing that, Seth, you're talking about all these terrible marketers who go out there and just want to grab a piece of people's eyeballs, and they don't really care about engagement or any of this stuff. And I think one of the top quick fixes is honestly celebrities. People think you get a good celebrity on something and it can mask all these other concerns. Is there ever a time when using celebrities is positive? And DoSomething uses celebrities all the time for what we're doing. Is it ever good, and how is it not sort of a quick fix? Because everyone does it, from the media to not-for-profits to brands.
All right, so let me be philosophical for one short minute, which is everyone walks around with a story in their head. George Lakoff calls it a worldview. Their expectations, their biases. So you walk down the street in New York City, you see people, you are judging them. There's a lot of judging going on in this room all the time.
Right now.
And that judging comes from worldview. Well, a lot of teenagers judge what you do, partly by the veneer that it's got, because there's so many things they can choose from. And often putting the right celebrity in the right place at the right time works as a veneer to at least say, treat this with a certain amount of attention and respect. I would think about celebrities the way I would think about a daily vitamin, which is you can probably live quite a healthy life without taking vitamins. And if you're dying from something else, all the vitamins in the world aren't going to help you. But if the vitamins are free and they're not distracting you from the healthy living you ought to be doing, it's not clear to me that they're going to undermine what you're doing.
All right, cool. So I think the takeaway is that Beyonce is a vitamin. We have a few minutes left, and I wanted to open up to questions from the audience. If anyone here, we have microphones on either side. If someone in the audience has a question for any of our panelists. Any hands raised?
Way in the back. Just yell it. We'll repeat you.
What do you think of some of the new disruptive technologies like Google Glass, self-driving cars, that kind of thing, and how those things could affect social movements?
So the question is, what do we think of Google Glass and self-driving cars and how that could affect social movements? I mean, it's hard to go to the self-driving cars thing. Google Glass right now, if you...
Disruptive technologies, generally speaking, are there others that you see that
yeah,
might
so there's
be
no
more important?
There's no technology, generally speaking, and in a way, part of the hard part of thinking through these tools is that you don't get that for every electrification or the internet, which is a base platform on which lots and lots of other things can happen. Most of it is, then there's the web, then there's sites on the web, and then there's e-commerce with, So in fact, most of the things that are going to happen that will matter for DoSomething are going to be at a level much narrower than these kinds of things. I will say for Google Glass, if you've ever wanted a bad television right about here, that's about the state it's at right now. One of my former students is working on the project, and so I got to try them the other day, and they're simultaneously astonishing and not ready for prime time. You can imagine, though, essentially the scaling up the logic of an iPhone screen without having to have a pocket that's as wide as, a pocket that wide. And what that will mean is more ability to reach people with visually rich, complicated, not having to cram everything down to a text message. But in a way, if you assume that Google Glass is there in 10 years' time, you can imagine what you could do on phones 3 years from now just by assuming that things are starting to go in that trajectory.
The only thing I would throw out is it's so tempting when part of our world is going by us at 400 miles an hour to quickly try to get the next big thing. Since 10 years ago, there's only been one, maybe two big things that changed for DoSomething: mobile and texting. That's it. And you can, if you pick the right ones, you don't have to be first. You just have to pick them and sit with them until they become real. But the underlying message here is we're still people, and connecting is at the heart of what makes the internet work. Connecting, not technology. And if you can figure out how to connect with people, you're always going to be a step ahead of the game.
And it goes back to even an original point is just ask what your, what the data guys were talking about, ask what your users are using, right? If Google Glass may be amazing, but if most people aren't going to be using it for 10 years, and even at that point, maybe it's only people that can afford a Google Glass, it's probably not worth investing time or energy into it.
Great. Anyone else in the audience have a question? All right. I see one back there. Shout it out.
People have tried it. It's not working by and large, and here is why. The self-definition of people as activists calls together the people who already think of themselves that way, and that's a great group, but it's not a big group. And the places where things change, the most, I think, remarkable campaign in this direction was about this time last year, the culmination of the Stop SOPA and PIPA movement. That was conducted on Reddit. That is not an activist platform. That is a cute cat distribution layer to a first approximation. But the people on Reddit wouldn't shut up about SOPA and PIPA, and it got to the front page enough time. So when you say we need an activist platform for activists to activate one another, yes, great, it works. They've built it, and all that happens is it's like. It's like playing ping pong with a too small table. Everything is just bouncing around all the time, but it never gets out. That the activist platforms that matter, and the best version of this is Ethan Zuckerman's cute cat theory of internet activism, which says essentially the platforms that people are already using is where the activism should be happening. That Zuccotti Park, to take the Occupy movement, Zuccotti Park as an open public space repurposed for activism was a better recruitment mechanism than if those people had held meetings indoors at the Center for Ethical Culture for 10 years. So I would say the people activists most want to reach are the people who can reach the people those activists can't reach, which is to say, assume that social spread is your big leverage rather than degree of passion in the core. And when you look at it that way, what you say is, where are people? And then Facebook becomes an activist platform, Twitter becomes an activist platform, Reddit becomes an activist platform.
All the way in the back?
Do you mean like pink ribbons and things like that? Give me some examples, or give us some examples. Yeah, I guess I want to reiterate my point about weirdness here. Raise your hand if you gave blood in the last 4 weeks. Right? Oh. So that's a lot, actually. But most people didn't raise their hand. If the masses of people, the number of people who watched the Super Bowl, all took action at the same time on almost any issue, it would be unprecedented and impossible, and it would cause a huge thing. That's not your goal. Your goal is to get as many people who gave blood to go do that thing you're hoping to get them to do. And so the internet is not a mass marketing system. It's a micro marketing system. There isn't one bestseller list. There's a million bestseller lists, literally a million, and you just have to be on one of them to make an impact. And so anytime you're asking a question where you're talking about everyone, you're asking the wrong question. And the question ought to be, that little group on the edge, what's it going to take to get them to do something? And the answer is not a full-page ad in the New York Times or a ribbon on a bumper sticker. It's something much more directed and focused.
And I'll just answer that question head on from a do something perspective, because we do work with a lot of corporate sponsors. And so I think it really depends. In some instances, working with a corporate sponsor helps us. They haven't heard of do something. They're like, what is this weirdo not-for-profit I've never heard of? I've heard of this corporate sponsor. Maybe they're legit. And then on the other side of things, sometimes when we work with Walmart, for example, there are going to be teens who aren't happy about that and won't get engaged in that activism campaign. But I think you really have to talk about who you're talking to, because there are different segments of the teen audience. They're not just a monolith. All right, so I think we are out of time. A huge round of applause for the panel. And I'm really excited to welcome the next person to the stage. Please give them an extra round of applause, because this person organized this entire day. It is our director, essentially, of world domination. April, come on up here.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk to you real quick about our international expansion plans, or what I like to call world domination. Oh, tech up there. All right, well, I'll just keep going. This would be a lovely, amazing picture of a Death Star, but it's not there, so just imagine it in your head. So when I talk about world domination, I'm not talking about the Death Star and Darth Vader. I'm actually talking about it's a small world after all. I'm actually talking about this. So Walt Disney sort of had it right when he made that exhibit and the attraction at our favorite place, Disney World. It's that the thing that's really interesting is we say here that teens are frustrated and they want to fix the world, but US teens aren't actually the only teens that have that passion. We've found that teens all across the globe are interested in volunteerism and giving back to their community. And so our goal is to have 10 international affiliates by the end of 2014. And we have some now. We currently have them in the United Kingdom, Portugal, and Indonesia. And what do we look for when we pick a Do Something affiliate and bring them into our family? We look for either an organization or a social entrepreneur that has a love and passion and really bleeds teens as much as we bleed them here, not in that way. It's a little creepy. But that they just feel really passionate about what teens can accomplish. And they have the desire to do it sort of in our proven model, which is the campaign model. And sometimes that means that they have to take some of our great campaigns and shape it for their culture. I'll get into that a little bit later. So what are our current affiliates doing? The United Kingdom, they launched their first campaign this summer called Reverse Riots. They launched it so strong that they had the Prime Minister backing it. And it was to reverse the media perception that the teens and young people got, unfortunately, as a result of the London riots. So they collected 7,800 pictures from teens across the United Kingdom of things that they were doing good in their community. And then the most amazing thing is that they took those pictures and they actually covered the House of Reeves. And if anyone remembers the London riots, the House of Reeves was one of those symbols of the London riots. This was the house that was up in flames. So they talked to the owners, and the owners let them cover the entire building, which is like the symbol of the London riots, in all of the good things that young people are doing. Then we have Portugal. Portugal is also a really, really big fan of running our campaigns. They've run Grandparents Gone Wired. They've done a financial education campaign. And they've also reimagined Thumb Wars. They also really, really love running our social boot camps. So that's where teens get together and they talk about their projects and their organizations and get feedback directly. And one of the best things, and Aria, I'm so sorry, you're going to kill me for including this in the slide, but one of the best things about Portugal is they have a bus, which I'm still hoping to get one here one day, maybe. And Indonesia, so I mentioned really quickly earlier that sometimes when we have a Do Something affiliate, they have to sort of reimagine it for what works in their culture. And Indonesia is a great example of this. So they wouldn't be so successful if they went out and run campaigns. So what they do is they have about 500 clubs, and they go in and they take our campaigns and reimagine it for massive school assemblies where they can get together and talk about bullying and run through the causes that way. So what's next for our international expansion plan? Well, obviously, with a goal of 10 international affiliates, we have quite the couple years ahead of us. So we're looking at Canada, Mexico, India, Australia, and lastly, Africa. We're hoping to run a competition in Africa that will help us get 5 African affiliates. We're also hoping to do one big global campaign this spring, actually, testing something that we love here, the pregnancy text, with our Do Something UK affiliate. And we're hoping that 2013 will get 15,000 new members at least as a result of the international affiliates, as well as 100,000 participants. So I'm going to end this with just like a quick call to help. These are obviously really ambitious plans that we're totally going to hit, and I'm really excited about. But if you know anyone who is interested in starting a Do Something in another country, again, whether that's a great organization or a social entrepreneur, feel free to email me. Also, if you've had experience doing this with another company or organization and want to join the International Affiliate Committee that we meet about once a quarter and go through different prospects and review the phases of the actual proposals. You can email me, it's still there. Or if you just want to chat, I like chatting with people, it's great. So with that in mind, I'm going to release you all for a quick break. We're going to start promptly at 3:45, where Nancy is going to give the State of the Union. There's water, bathroom, quick tea. One note is you can't bring food back in here, so chug it.
I remember that song. I remember that. It's cool.
2011, 2012, 20... No, wait.
Revenue?
Yes. So 2011, yes. Yes, okay,
2013.
great.
Okay, good. Kenia, it's going to start on black, so just forward. Yeah, press one.
Did you add a slide?
Can you just add them to this presentation? I was going to have Naomi come and double click it out, but if you can add them to this presentation.
Yep.
Got them locked in there?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh.
What's that?
Okay.
It's fine. Dave will just be like, when Dave sees it, when they answer presentation, he's like, oh. Should I just tell them now?
No.
Just let it go? Okay. People will probably forget anyways. Thank you, sir. Let's get it back in play mode. Oh no, actually, I am. I can. You want me to put the intro slides into the? I can do the bio. The intro slides. It would be no problem at all.
Okay, but like, it's like... Of the thing? We just like didn't do it in the first half, so I feel like it would just like look weird and it's fine. And like not like... What the title slide?
Actually, let's just go and start it on this one. That way. Does Nancy want to cue into anything?
Yeah, why not?
She'll start on black.
The 20-year.
What's that? Is it? Hello. I got another picture. So that focus.
All right, are we ready to start the rest of the program? So my name is Nancy Lublin. I have the best job of anybody in the room because I get to work with, unless you work at DoSomething, you're not working at the best place to work. So I get to work with the best people. I mean, how great has this been so far, right? So April has done a terrific job organizing this day. Thank you, April. The materials look amazing. Lauren, thank you so much. They look great. Lauren, exactly. I love that our two data scientists stood up and without sort of any cheerleading or sense of irony at all, just put the numbers on there on the board for you. And is it a little bit incredible that we're over-indexing on Hispanic youth? It's a little incredible, because let's be honest, we were not set up to help rich kids from Westchester do more social change. That's not really why we all come to work every day. It's nice, but really why we all come to work every day is to bring social change to kids who wouldn't otherwise do it. So I'm just feeling pretty lucky. And Aria with that last panel was amazing. It's just too bad she doesn't have any energy. So I'm here, I get to tell you, talk to you about some of the big themes for the year ahead, touching a little bit on what I talked about this time last year. So I'm going to first slide. There we go. First slide. So this is a Prius. So let's talk a little bit about Toyota. Toyota is a car company. Toyota makes the Camry, the Corolla. They make Tacoma trucks. They make electrics and hybrids like the Prius. In 2013, you're going to see us function more like Toyota. You're going to see us focus more on consistency, for example. So version 2, V2 models with regular tweaks. So for example, every year they come out with the Prius, and it's a little bit better every year. Or that Tacoma truck has more seats, or better cup holders, or a better sound system. So we've really nailed some of our campaigns like Teens for Jeans or Pregnancy Text. You're going to see us roll out new versions of those things with improvements so that it's consistent. And you're going to see us roll out those things on a global basis with consistency. You're going to see us increase our speed from plan to build to launch, just like a car company focuses on speed. And you're going to see us focus on efficiency, what we reuse, what we reiterate, and how we use resources. This is good for customers, it's good for companies, and it's good for dealers when Toyota functions this way. And for us, it's good for members, it's good for marketing partners, it's good for sponsors, and it's great for the organization itself. So you're going to see us function more like a car company. Second thing, this picture, it's a little tiny, but what this picture is of people working on the railroad. More than about 150 years ago when the railroad was expanding across the United States. And there would be a team of people out front who would be slashing away at trees, and then there'd be a team of people laying down railroad tile, and then only a few hundred yards back there'd be people driving the train. The train was coming as they were laying the tracks. And last year, one of the things that we talked about was dating up, that DoSomething was going to pull in great people like Clay and Seth and Lee, fantastic, better marketing partners. So we were really working on a relationship with FastWeb and with Alloy and with VH1 and other partners who we loved, and aiming for bigger sponsors like the Toyotas of the world to partner with. And we did that, and we've learned a lot from those people, and we've learned a lot from board members and advisors. But this year, you're going to also see us pioneer things. That there are some things that we are doing, in particular, the work that we're doing on SMS and the work that we're going to be doing on YouTube, where nobody has cut ground in front of us before. And we're going to have to get comfortable leading. I know that sounds strange because some of us at DoSomething and even outside DoSomething think of us as leaders and think of us as leaders in innovation. But this is really work where we don't have anyone else to turn to. And we are literally clearing the trees, laying the tiles, and driving the train ourselves without anyone else providing a roadmap. It's very exciting to be pioneers. We've got to trust our instincts and push forward. There will be failures, and then we push forward again. And this is something that I think we're very proud of internally at the organization. It's also something that scares us a little bit sometimes, and sometimes we look around and say, who should we call? Who can we get advice from? But actually, there might not be anybody who's ever written this kind of code before Mike C. or Chris or Desmond or someone else puts their hands on it. And that's pretty cool, too. And it might be pretty cool to think, well, I'll go to a New York tech meetup and ask other people how they do it. And then instead, Dee comes back and says, nope, I actually taught everybody in the room what the best way is to do this. And we've got to get comfortable leading that way. I think we always thought of ourselves leading that way as a not-for-profit. And now we're going to think of ourselves leading that way as a tech company. Third, so this is saffron. Anybody ever cook with saffron? It's expensive, but also you don't need a lot of it. So that's the good news, Sydney. It is expensive, but the thing about saffron is I'm going to call this the saffron effect. That when you take a tiny little pinch of saffron, it changes the dish completely. It changes its color, it changes its flavor. Saffron is the kind of spice that, boom, the dish changes completely as soon as you add just a little pinch. And it lingers on your tongue. You can kind of taste the saffron a few hours later. Last year, I came here and I talked about scale. And we said we were doubling the number of campaigns, and we would be adding products, or what we would call at DoSomething acquisition tools, so that we could scale rapidly. And you saw the slides earlier. We did scale rapidly, and we added a lot of new users. This year, we're going to be focusing, in addition to scaling, on something I would call the saffron effect, which is about impact in two ways. Impact is different from scale. It's different from just being big. It's about making an actual difference. And we want every campaign that we do to actually have a difference on the thing that we're touching. So not just do it big, but do it important. And we've talked before about the organization shifting from nice to important, which I think we did in 2012 thanks to our size. In 2013, every campaign we do will shift from nice to important. The second way that the saffron effect should be in place here is that saffron is a very unique spice. It's a unique color. It's a very unique flavor. I think you'll see us do more things in 2013 that really only we could do. And not just rolling up, for example, canned food drives, but finding a way to do it with text and doing it in a way that's truly unique. Maybe it's collecting a different kind of food, so it's not just soup like everybody else collects for homeless shelters. Because if I were homeless, I think I'd want cereal or peanut butter. Let's be honest, I'd want chocolate. So doing something really unique and different. 4. Tron. We're bringing back Fight for the User. This is something that we talked about a couple of years ago. How many of you know, and the original Tron, not the remake with Olivia Wilde. Anyone, the original Tron? Okay, thank you. It was a sequel, not really a remake. It was sort of a slash between the two, actually. Thank you, Calvin, for correcting my pop culture. The point of Tron is that users are capable of manipulating the digital world. We're not just sort of slaves to it. We're capable of changing it. And I think sometimes when we think about shipping product or putting things out there, we think we'll just put it out there and people will come and people will use it, and we treat them in a uniform way as either users or non-users. And last year, we hired our first 2 data analysts, scientists, and we focused on collecting, storing, analyzing, and sharing data with all of you, with our sponsors, with the friends of the organization, with each other, and we'll continue to do that. The fact that we open ourselves up and we are so transparent about how we collect, store, analyze, and share our data is a point of pride for us. It's frankly one of the reasons we're so proud to work with Alcoa, for example. I don't know if some of you know this, but Alcoa is known as every year the first company that shares its earnings. They're known for their transparency and innovation. We're proud of being the same thing on the not-for-profit side, being one of the most open of the not-for-profits out there. We'll continue to do that. But this year, you're also going to see us leverage that data. Later this year, you will see us do a deep dive into customization and segmentation. You'll see personalization. You'll see localization, so that when you text in, we will send back things to you that we know you want, that we know you will want enough to spread to your friends and invite them to join with you. And the key to this is that if we fight for the user, we will experience something this year. Not only deeper engagement, but we'll experience organic growth. What we experienced in 2012 was what we would loosely call paid growth. Doesn't mean we spent a lot of money on it. It means that it was paid growth. It came in largely from places where we had free advertising and support, like places like FastWeb, who gave us terrific visibility, or some of the scholarship money that we attached to things. People were kind of lured to us. They were excited by incentives that we offered and by paid, in quotes, because it was really unpaid, paid growth, if that makes sense. In 2013, we're looking forward to organic growth. People spreading the word to their friends. People signing up for our things just because they want to, because there's a relationship there. That's what it means to fight for the user. And those words are actually going to be painted in huge letters across an entire wall in our office. The last thing that I want to talk about, this is a report back from the campaign that we actually did with Alcoa called 50 Cans, where kids were encouraged to recycle 50 cans. And the report backs, we encourage them to send in report backs by photo. And this is just one of our favorite, most adorable photo report backs. One of the other things you're going to see us do in 2013 is that, frankly, if actions speak louder than words, and a picture is worth 1,000 words, then what happens when action and pictures get married? That was funny, you can laugh. You're going to see us leverage photo and video much more in 2013. So in the next few months, look for the birth of Instagram with Do Something. Look for us to really start to leverage Instagram. That'll be led by Kerry, and we're really excited about that. Look for us to utilize Tumblr in all new ways, which Calvin, if he has half the success he's had for us on Facebook, we'll all be thrilled. And YouTube. We are doubling down on YouTube in very big, exciting ways that you will see at sort of the end of this quarter, beginning of next quarter, that Brad and a whole bunch of other people on the team have really been pushing forward on. We're proud that we have been selected by YouTube as their charity of the year. We're going to be doing tons of work with YouTube and the Google team. Look for us to really leverage that in exciting ways. Look for infographics every week. And infographics not for the sake of noise, but infographics that lead to actual conversions. Lauren is going to be spending time on those every week. Look for report backs to be done by photo and video. For example, we're launching an exciting campaign with H&R Block called Money on My Mind, or Mind on My Money. And this is all about the craziest shit that people have ever done to pay for college, or to pay for things. So we actually worked with Upright Citizens Brigade on this. Look for really exciting, funny videos and photos. The report backs will be encouraged by photo to report back on the craziest stuff you've ever done to pay for things like college. And lastly, look for us to clean up flows on the site using more image and fewer words. We think that image is the new black. Image is the new social. Photos, videos, this is the future. We want to watch and engage. It's a deeper relationship than a few words, and so look for us to leverage that. The last thing that I want to say, and there isn't a pretty slide to say it, is just that black space. Anything is really possible. I may stand up here this time next year and tell you about some new technology that, frankly, now on January 31st hasn't been created yet that we figured out how to leverage. But I think something that you heard from Clay and from Seth and from Lee was that this is all about relationships. And more than anything else that I've said here today about how we design and systematize things, about how we're going to be leading, about the saffron effect, and how we'll be looking at more of an impact that we make on things, about fighting for the user, or about being more visual, look for us to deepen our relationship with young people. If I can pull anything out of the presentation that came from those two data scientists, it really is that point about those Hispanic kids. We are so fiercely proud of that information and excited to leverage it moving forward because we actually care about those kids. So at the end of the day, while we might behave like a technology company, our purpose is actually to do social change. So excited for 2013. Thank you. So we can't do any of this without money. So I'm going to invite up our Director of Finance, Kenia, to do, again, what I'm not sure many other not-for-profits ever do, which is sort of open up finance and share with you where our money comes from and where our money is going. And we're really lucky to have Kenia, who's been with us now 3 years, and I'm happy to welcome her to the stage.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Nancy. That was amazing. I don't know if you're thinking what I'm thinking. Nancy Loveland for President 2016? Yes. Woo! Yeah, and that's amazing, and I really love that part about the Latino kids. It really brings that home for me. So just a warning, guys. There's some serious TMI coming your way, but I'm going to keep it, so that nobody falls asleep, but it's going to be amazing. And I do also have one of the best jobs in the world, which is not only working with this amazing, group of staff at DoSomething.org, but also, managing the money and making sure that things are getting spent correctly, that our sponsors are happy, that, they have a sense of understanding of where their money's going to, and that's one of the things that Nancy was talking about, this, this sense of transparency and being very open, and that's where I come in. So every year, I stand here in front of you. If you've been here in years past, you kind of know the drill. I talk about, where our money it's coming from and where money is being utilized. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to our I'm going to take you all the way back to 2011. And the reason why I do that is just to give you something to compare it to when you look at 2012, which I'll talk to about in a second. So, 2011 was a huge year for us. We pivoted to mobile and membership engagement, and we had a $3 million infusion coming from the Knight Foundation and the Omidyar Network Fund, which largely accounted for that 21% you see there for foundations. 65% of our money came from corporate sponsors and corporate foundations. And we also received in 2011 a $2 million Google grant from Google.org, which was to be spent over the next 2 years. And these funds were really what allow us to build this larger platform that Nancy was talking about and becoming this, what the leading resource for teens and social change, or just making that a larger platform. And in 2011, it was also a big year in terms of expenses for us. With this new influx of money, a lot of that money, pretty much we focused it on building our cost campaign. So you see 38% of our money went to build more campaigns. We also at this time had a huge website, technology, and content redesign, which accounted for 24% of our funding. 16% went to build products and to engage more teens, and 8% of our money went directly to grants and scholarships to kids. And if you can see, the rest is just kind of divided up between our clubs programs around the country, and as well as our social boot camps, which April mentioned recently. So that was 2011. Now, in 2012, revenue, it was an even bigger year for us in 2012. We had over $8.7 million in revenue, which pretty much the distribution stayed pretty consistent in terms of our revenue sources. Over 60% of our campaigns, again, of our money came from corporate sponsors. And, a lot of that money was, for us to continue to build these as campaigns, as they would talk later on, about our campaigns and how many we run and how huge they were. So I let him dive more deeply into that. But yeah, both our foundation sponsors as well as our corporate sponsors, really what they do is, help us build these programs that are part of our cost marketing initiatives. And another thing to note is that a lot of our campaign funders are sponsors that return to us year after year. For example, this year we have Aeropostal, who's here back to do Teens for Jeans for us for 6th year in a row. I mean, how amazing is that? We also have other sponsors like Sprint, Amex, VH1, these are all sponsors that have been here with us for 5 years in a row. So that's pretty amazing to see. And while 81% of nonprofits in the United States get most of their funding from individuals, you can see our distribution only shows 1% of our funding coming from individuals. What that means to you is that you're never gonna get those like really annoying direct mailings asking you for money that just end up in the trash anyway, right? So you don't have to worry about that. And another thing that I can't forget to mention is the invaluable resource that's sometimes overlooked or quiet, which is, our in-kind donations or our in-kind donors. On a yearly basis, we receive over $6 million in in-kind donations from companies like Hulu, VH1, who give us invaluable PSA promotions in order to be able to reach more kids. Channel 1, Google, who gives us, a ton of AdWords. And JetBlue, who gives us hundreds of tickets so that we can fly all over the country and be able to keep our staff travel budget relatively low. So yeah, we can't forget about those. They don't make it to the chart, but they're there, and we really, really appreciate them. In 2012, this is our expense breakdown. Again, we had $6.2 million in expenses in 2012. Much of the spending, again, remained, was just using some of this influx of money that we received in 2011. But we also really focused on doubling down the number of campaigns, which, as you'll hear more about or heard already, help us reach and crush that goal that we had of reaching our 1.4 million members in 2012. So that's kind of like how we got there, how we did it, where the distribution of that funds were. We focused 20% of our funds on developing new products to engage our members, and 14% to improve our website functionality, to create new microsites, where these campaigns would live, and adding fresh and relevant content to our website on a daily basis. If you go there every single day, there's going to be new campaigns running, new things to share, new content. So that's where a lot of that revenues, expenses are going to. 11% of our funds this year went, again, to kids, so we're really proud of that continues to grow. And then, again, the rest of the distribution remained the same between boot camps and clubs. And you can see that we also try to keep our, administrative costs relatively low. So that's the gist of our expenses and revenue distribution for the year. And I really hope this information is useful to you. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to come to me after and ask me. I always love to discuss these things with anyone that's interested in finance. And to finalize, I really wanted to just give you a quick snapshot of what our 2013 revenue projection is. We hope to keep it relatively similar, and our focus is really going to be much more on, like Nancy said, growing a lot of our existing campaigns, making them bigger, making them better, and scaling that in that way while we sustain our revenue source model. So another thing I also wanted to mention, if we're always looking for adult volunteers, and if you have an interest in finance, I'm always looking for people to join our finance committee. So if you have an interest in that, see me after, and we can talk about it. And we can talk about how you can help us, because again, there are so many smart, amazing professionals in this room, and I love your input in any of this. So that's it for me, and now I'm going to pass it over to our amazing CMO, Naomi Hirabayashi, who's going to talk, moderate our panel on teens and mobile. Thank you.
Hello. How's everybody doing? All right. One more time, because this is the time when people start to be like, did I do that paper? Did I send that email? How's everyone doing? All right. I love it. So this is definitely, I would say, breaking news. Teens are using mobile. And I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's true. And at DoSomething.org, obviously, you've heard that this is something we're incredibly focused on. And when we say mobile, we mean three things: SMS, mobile optimized web, and mobile apps. And we just have some crazy stats that are out there. Over the average teen sends 5,000 texts. They exchange 5,000 texts each month. 86% of teens sleep with their mobile phone either in their bed or very close to their bed. I do that too, and I'm not a teenager, but whatever. And 50% of teens feel like they could not survive if they didn't have their mobile phone for 1 week, and they check it no matter what environment they're in. So today, we're going to talk with some incredible experts about mobile strategy and what really that looks like, and what are some best practices for everybody here to kind of take home and take into consideration across mobile strategy. So I want to bring up our lovely panel. We have Ali Rosenthal, and we have Sam McKelvie, and Rob Specter, and Raj Kapoor, our mobile experts. Hey, thank you. Hey, I like your shirt. And you are, isn't that in your job title? All right, I like that. Okay, and we're going to be taking questions at the end. Or I'm also going to be looking at social media, at Twitter, so let me know if you want to ask a question, and I will try to get it in. So to start off, I think the biggest thing that, again, we know in the mobile world is that teens are definitely paying attention. They are clued into mobile. So the question is, what content really stands out? If you're trying to think about smart mobile marketing, what content is most consumed by young people and teens that you guys are seeing in your experience?
So I would say, broadly speaking, the category that stands out, and this is also for online, mobile just makes it happen easier, is very broadly self-expression. It's all about expressing yourself, whether it's to the public via Instagram, whether it's to your friends via Facebook, or 100 other, whether it's Snapchat just for 3 seconds so no one else looks at it.
Right, absolutely.
I think kind of broadly, to dovetail on that, it appears that the medium that the self-expression is taking place is entirely through short-form, asynchronous communication that is interoperable with mobile devices. So, we mentioned like 3/4 of kids are sending text messages right now. One of the things that's interesting is the lack of prevalence of smartphones among those teens. So the numbers are a little squishy. About 1 in 4 teens own a smartphone. The reason why they're squishy is because for older teens, it's more of like a third. For younger ones, 12 to 14, it's like 6%. So the numbers are kind of strange, but it seems that the only way that these folks are having this asynchronous communication, these actual conversations, are through these mediums that allow for that to work over a broad number of devices, which right now is SMS.
Great. So if you're a marketer really trying to break through, you would say focus on SMS.
I think that's the best way to ensure that you're reaching the largest number of teenagers, and making sure that that's a conversation as opposed to a broadcast is super important.
I'd say also the types of content, in addition to products that enable a lot of self-expression, so things that where you can upload a photo and then decorate it or Snapchat it for a second, are also music and games. There's a lot of dubstep and the like that kids are using.
Don't do that.
In advance of this panel, I polled a bunch of teens, and they seemed to mention music, games, as well as social, but actually not as typically Facebook and Pinterest, but more Snapchat, Instagram. So more, to answer your question more specifically on some of the categories that people are spending time in as well.
Great. And so when you say music and other stuff, can you just kind of give an example of like what that would look like in terms of engagement and content consumption?
Oh, well, whether you could record your voice or take a song and mix it up on SoundCloud and kind of derive your own product from something that's existing. So it's quick, it's easy, and you can put your own stamp on it and then easily share it.
Your own brand.
Yep.
Great. Sam?
And I would say that's why DoSomething's seen so much success, is because through their mobile campaigns, through SMS, they're interacting with teens, allowing them to express themselves, and really finding out what's important to them.
I would be careful, though, around SMS. I think this is getting a little bit overplayed in the marketing world. So if you think about it from the perspective, think how personal SMS is. And I think there's a segmentation question that we even talked about at Do Something. There are certain people that will just take in every SMS that you send them. And there are other people, and this includes people that are older like us or me, where you kind of get annoyed after hearing 1 or 2 messages that you don't want to necessarily see. Whereas in other social media forums where there are feeds, where you don't have to consume every single message that comes through, you're unlikely to stop following. But you will stop and you will unsubscribe if you're getting intruded upon on a regular basis in SMS, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, what is Android is lighting up 2 to 3 million smartphones around the world on a daily basis, and I think it's something like between 70 and 80% of Americans now have smartphones, and the ubiquity of technology and how prices are coming down are going to be more and more teens are going to have smartphones, which means they're going to have these apps that work for free on Wi-Fi as long as there's a data plan, and so to the extent you are having to receive a text and it actually costs you or your parents money, my guess is, and just to sort of support Raj's skepticism on SMS, is that more and more kids are going to be downloading apps that are free and are cross-platform.
Kik,
WhatsApp, Text Plus, iMessage. If all of your friends are on iPhones or on iPods and you're in a Wi-Fi enabled space, I think free is a really important feature or factor in how you're going to, going forward, reach kids.
And for those new instant messenger apps, and to your point, how do you think that affects the future of traditional SMS as we see it kind of for the next year or so?
Oh, well, I mean, for the first time in the carrier's history, in the third quarter of 2012, SMS revenues actually were in decline. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to see the global messaging market get changed from messaging being SMS to being OTT or over-the-top messaging faster than the trend would currently suggest.
Also, what that implies is that there's a lot more fidelity in those applications, and the problem is not all those applications are compatible with each other, so it's going to be even more of a nightmare now to create marketing campaigns. Now you're just worried about the phone and whether it's iOS or Android, but you're like, well, which is the messaging app? Because it's not all SMS.
I mean, I think those of us in the SMS space should love these IP messaging apps. I mean, they're absolutely encouraging the kind of behavior that we want to see. So teens talking to each other, peer-to-peer, sharing content in this way just makes it easier for us to talk to them in the same way, to share content with them, and to have them share content with us. That being said, like you folks said, they're not all interoperable. They don't work on all phones. They don't work across all carriers. And I don't think we're ever going to see these apps truly compete with a native app on a phone that goes across everything.
So moving off of just SMS for a second, one of the things that we definitely saw with the emergence of social media, right, is those diagrams of this is social media and it's 100,000 networks. You have to be on all of these. And a lot of people who maybe didn't have the bandwidth or resources or innovative insight felt really kind of crippled by that. And so they just didn't get their feet wet, and then they kind of fell behind. I think there's a similar thing happening with mobile. Everybody knows that mobile is increasingly important. We're seeing that traffic from mobile is increasing time and time again. For people that are in the audience or watching on Ustream, what is kind of the first step you would say to enter into the mobile space in a smart way? Where should you invest first if you really don't know where to start? Across SMS, mobile optimized web, or apps?
Well, I think SMS kind of from a technical standpoint in terms of investment presents a really great opportunity because it gives you the most reach for the least amount of code. So very, very small amount of code. You can make a significant impact with this form factor. You don't have to design a UI. You don't have to make it responsive.
User interface.
You don't have to make it work on a whole bunch of different browsers or different smartphone devices. It's just, you only have 160 characters to work with, and by virtue of that constraint, it dramatically reduces the amount of development time to bring something to market and actually see how your users react.
One other thing to talk about is just there is kind of a downside of apps. Apps are a nice thing because it kind of compartmentalizes a task or something to get done. But the downsides are that there are very few marketing channels with the exception of these stores that can effectively get your app out. Secondly, and probably most importantly, if you're first starting to dabble, as you suggest, you can't make a lot of changes very quickly. It's very hard. To your point, if you create a mobile web version, you'll probably get less, you may get less usage, it depends, because you may not get a lot of people downloading your app, but at least you'll be able to iterate fast and get your proposition down before you invest in an app.
Yeah, one thing we did at Facebook early on, prior to the iPhone and sort of the emergence of smartphones, was we did have a very simple text messaging based application for poking and messaging. You could even fire someone if you used a certain short code. And one of the things that we used actually to Raj's point, to increase awareness, and this was again iPhone or Apple Store or Android Play was a push to optimized WAP or the mobile web. So you could actually choose if you wanted to interact with someone peer-to-peer, so SMS to SMS, or actually pushed into a mobile experience. And so you could kind of do both. You could start by testing and seeing if it was working, and then as Facebook was developing a abbreviated version of the web experience for the mobile web, you could also enable someone to push into a mobile web experience on a phone that wasn't even a smartphone.
And with mobile web, sometimes when we say mobile web, I think people just think it's a surface space play. So it's like, oh, mobile optimized web is you have your website and then you shrink it, and there you go. And it's not, obviously. So can you kind of just tell me in ways that it's not, or for people watching, what should they be doing, again, as like a first best practice for good, smart, mobile optimized web strategy?
So websites, good or bad, are an amalgamation of 100 things that the author wants the user to do. And if you look at a function of time as to when the website was created and then it was updated over time, it gets more and more crowded. And there are more and more things, unfortunately, with the exception maybe of Google, who stayed pretty disciplined. In this case of mobile web, I often think about what's the one thing that you want the user to do. And then they go to the next page to do the next thing, whether they do something or they get information.
And you know, I think it kind of brings up one of the trends that you and I see in the startup space, Raj, which is a lot of folks are adopting a strictly mobile-first strategy for all the interfaces that they're building. So if you are doing that redesign, if you're making the investment to do a dramatic re-architecture of your user experience, starting with the small phone, the small screen space in your pocket, will actually produce a better end user result. Your full desktop website will ultimately be cleaner. The user experience decisions that you make will ultimately be faster. It's just a really good forcing function for maintaining a strong user experience, regardless of whether you're on the phone or not.
How do you stand out? Again, just crowded space across all mediums, but how do you stand out in your mobile strategy, in a mobile app? How do you really make your organization memorable and really get the user's attention that you're seeking via mobile?
Well, I think the best way to stand out, and this is something that DoSomething's done an incredible job at, is to start with strategy first. Start with organizational goals. You know, don't start with the medium. Think about what campaigns you're running, and then use every resource you have to do that. So we've seen some incredibly integrated campaigns this year with DoSomething that use apps, that use SMS, that use MMS, and that use voice, all for the same goal, and it's been incredibly successful.
Okay, so we have 10 minutes, and I want to open it up to the audience to see who has a question for our experts.
Experts. That's going to be the only time this week that happens to me.
Because you said experts.
All right.
Awesome.
Yes, Rob, nice. I love it. Jeff, and want to get a mic for you? Okay. Go, Jeff.
So I wanted to touch on this earlier. There's I think I'll give credit to someone who's Matt Kohler at Benchmark who said this, which is that the big revolution is not communication, because that existed before the iOS and Android. The big revolution is that the phone becomes the remote control for the real world. And so you're seeing services, whether they're Uber or Lyft, which you can control a car effectively, and you can control not just your television, but all sorts of things. So it's figuring out, because mobile's with you, where you're taking action, how can it influence action in doing that? It's very high level, but I think that, to me, as an investor, is the most interesting area of opportunity, which is to go think about every single possible thing you do in the atomic world, which is most of what you do, and thinking how mobile can take a part and make it better.
Right. Other questions? Rob?
Well, I think for this audience in particular, for teens, the ones who win are the ones who are authentic. And you know, this is true whether you're selling Spider-Man comic books in the 1960s or you're sending SMS messages in 2013. this demographic, more than anyone, even more than developers, who I usually talk to, are one of the most discriminating demographics to try to reach in a meaningful way. And if your voice is not authentic, if it is not a conversation, they are not going to listen to you at all.
Yeah, I was going to just say similarly. I mean, I think one of the nice thing about SMS, I think you said it earlier, is just this feeling of like this message just came to me, this sort of privacy. It just feels that way. And I think with teens in particular, it seems as though trust, authenticity, and privacy is really paramount. And so, if you're connecting to the real world using this remote control, doing it in a way that is authentic and you kind of control and you feel a sense of sort of privacy, because I think violating that or giving a teen the sense that their information could get shared or traded for something would be the worst thing you could possibly do. There isn't that understanding yet.
And I don't think there's a better way to be authentic than to let them decide what's important. So one thing I'd love to see more in 2013 is sort of giving teens the agency to decide what's worthy of recognition, having them send in more pictures of other teens doing social good and share content in that way.
Great. Next question? Yeah, all the way in the back.
Hi, my name's Brian. I'm building with Peyton Manning, Derek Jeter, and Mia Hamm, a sports entertainment network for kids called The Whistle.
Well, I like one of those people. I'm sorry, I'm a Red Sox fan. My bad.
We're going to give 10% of our revenue to charity.
To DoSomething.org. Yep, great.
We wanted kids to help us decide which ones to give, where to spend that money. Sports by nature is very video, very visual medium. So 2 questions really. 1, do you have any thoughts on how we can use mobile to best choose which charities to give our revenue? And 2, how much mobile video are kids under 16 using right now?
How are you making revenue to begin with?
Advertising, sponsorships, partnerships, and traditional media marketplace.
Okay.
We got the former CEO of Nickelodeon, the former CEO of Kenia on our board.
I'm just going to repeat the question for everybody in the audience and also the live stream. What was the first part again? Sorry. How do we best use mobile? Right. So how do we best use mobile to have kids actually tell us which charity it's going to go to? And how do they best use mobile, best use video via mobile to get the word out about the campaign?
I mean, I would obviously say have them text it in. That's something that every teen that has a cell phone can do. There's no barriers to that.
Dude, American Idol that.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Vote for it.
For the second question, I actually had some experience with this when I used to work at a startup called Boxy. As it turns out, the teens aren't consuming a whole lot of streaming video right now. So the funny thing about YouTube is that it's actually the search engine that matters for teens. All right, that's where they're listening to all their music. It's not Spotify, it's not iTunes, it's not any of the other services that are out there. They're listening to all their music, all of it, on YouTube, which is insane. But they're not really consuming on their mobile devices in a meaningful way. And the way that you see it is really in their data usage. So Nielsen put in a report for 2011 where the average consumption per month is something like 250 megabytes, which is not a lot of video at all. So I would suspect, by virtue of the fact that there's only a quarter of them that have devices that could probably play video in any meaningful way, and the fact that the streaming space, especially for live video, not a lot of consumption going on in that demographic for streaming video.
Great. Yes. Yeah, so the question is, how can organizations like us do something and other organizations use mobile to target individuals versus just demographics?
So we just actually had this discussion at Do Something today earlier, and it is true. I think to set the stage, the world of SMS messaging is really broadcast. It feels that way. And it is moving in this direction, and I think Do Something is at the forefront of that. Other organizations are too, which is really understanding the user, setting up user profile, and having different trees. so that you can give different messages based upon those, whether it's demographics, whether it's frequency. There's probably 100 things you can do. So it looks really like one-to-one marketing in any other medium.
If you ask them what they want to hear, they'll tell you.
Yes. Okay, the question is, what do you think of using mobile for fundraising?
It works best, I think, on an opt-in basis when you can send out text messages asking people to go to a mobile optimized webpage and donate. The drawbacks of text to give, which is the $10 donations that get added to your cell phone bill, is that you're not building any kind of relationship with that user. You know, it's a one-time $10 donation. And those of us who've ever worked at nonprofits know we make money off repeat donations. And so we need to move people up the ladder of engagement, have them opt in first, show them why our organization's so important, have them take some other really cool actions that make them feel like they're contributing, and then ask them for a larger donation or a recurring donation.
Great. And our time is up, but before we go, I just want to ask all of you, in 5 years, how would you describe mobile? In 14 words or less. I just made that up. Rob, we'll start with you.
I would say still fragmented, but a whole lot more fun.
Okay, that's hopeful. I like it.
You will do everything on your phone.
Yeah, I'd say what's a laptop? What's a
Right.
desktop? I mean, what is it? Is that something that was put in a time capsule?
I saw that on TV once. Saw a laptop on TV once.
I would say the phone as we know it will start to disappear and we will wear it.
Whoa, gang, that is a bold statement, sir. Wow, wear it.
I like it.
Google Glass, where it's at. Boom.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Ali, Raj, Sam, Rob. Thank you so much. Okay, and next up we have the wonderful Dave DeLuca, who is going to talk about campaigns for 2013.
All right. Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing? That's pretty good for the end of a long meeting. I appreciate that. So, you've heard a lot of exciting things coming at you today. We have a bunch more that I want to tell you about campaigns, but the most important thing right now in this moment that I want everybody to make sure that they know that hasn't been talked about yet is that we are about T-minus 15 minutes away from booze. So that's coming down the pike. I thought that would do so much better in a New York audience. Come on, with the wine glass? All right, but first, seriously, campaigns. We had an amazing year, as you heard, and we have a lot of amazing things that are going to be happening in 2013. And I'm going to tell you about them, but first we wanted to start by playing you a video that's going to go a little in depth on 3 of our most loveliest campaigns that we ran in 2012. So check it out.
One time, we nearly ran a red light and almost collided with oncoming traffic.
I'm tired of hitting that invisible passenger side brake when she swerves into the other lane as she tweets.
One of Justin's good friends was texting while driving and then suffered a near-fatal car crash.
Just because he was paying more attention to his phone than to the road. When I first heard about thumb socks, I was like, what? But little did I realize that there was a huge message behind them.
I gave my thumb socks to my best friend.
I shared my thumb socks with my wonderful boyfriend, Justin.
I shared my thumb socks with my dad.
I shared my thumb socks with my best friend.
We need to get people's attentions away from their phones and onto the reality of exactly how dangerous texting and driving is. Because it's not only affecting our lives, but it affects the lives of innocent people around us.
Hey DoSomething, I'm calling to tell you about my experience with the I Heart Dad campaign. Well, it was a hassle to get Dad to actually care about his health, but it was worth it. When I heard about the I Heart Dad campaign, I asked him about the last time he got his blood pressure checked, and he said something like, I don't know, 3 years ago maybe? I told him that we were going to get him a checkup to see how he was doing. The next day, I dragged him to Walgreens, so it wouldn't be too disturbing to his daily routine of watching TV, eating, and watching more TV. After about 30 minutes at the clinic, we found out that he had really high blood pressure and that he should have been checking at minimum every 3 months. Don't worry, I've already marked the dates on the calendar. I asked the nurse what we needed to do to lower my dad's numbers. He stressed to keep active and maintain a healthy diet, going easy on the salt. That trip to Walgreens has been a huge blessing for me and my dad. Now we can work together on getting his blood pressure under control, and even spend some quality time together. As a team, my family helps each other's mental and physical health. Thanks, Do Something, for making sure at least one of us cares about my dad's health.
And this message.
My job basically is to go into the street and look for the young people that are homeless and try to offer them resources and bring them back to the Covenant House, and then begin the process of basically rebuilding their lives.
I found out that we can get a lot of donations of some beautiful dress clothes. Young people do not want anything but a pair of jeans.
When we have a jean drive and we're able to give them jeans where it's their option, they can pick and choose what they want, it builds so much confidence and character because it gives them a sense of, I'm not homeless anymore.
And they're like so grateful, and you know, like, they did this for us, they doing this for us. Yes, somebody out there cares about you.
And you know, a pair of jeans to some people may seem insignificant, but to these young people here, it says more than just a pair of jeans, a pair of clothing to wear. It says that, wow, there's people out there that are actually thinking about us when we, you know, pretty much gone through our lives and haven't really been thought about. You know, we've been kind of forgotten and left alone.
I remember one incident, we had a young person that came in, nothing, just had one pair of jeans, a shirt, barely had a coat, a hat. And before he left here, he left with like 3 bags of clothing. I mean, he went on to do great things. He went to college. He's working now. He's working at the airport. He's been working at the airport, I think, for 4 years now. He came out here with all these clothes, and now he comes here trying to help the young people, speaking to them, and just letting them know, look, I've been through it. You can do it.
So we bring out a lot of numbers in presentations like this, and numbers are great, but I just think it's important, like this number is amazing. This is the amount of teens and young people that took action through DoSomething.org campaigns in 2012, and that's huge. But what's really amazing to understand is what they were actually doing. Over 200,000 teens asked their loved ones, please don't text and drive, I want you to be safe. You saw thousands of dads got healthier because of our teens. In addition, we had over 20,000 teens walked to help build a clean water well in Swaziland, Africa. Over 190,000 teens told the world where bullying is happening in their school and what they think should be done about it. Over 1 million pairs of jeans donated, 1.3 million aluminum cans recycled. That is the action that makes up this number of 1.7 million, and that's what we're really proud of. Thanks, but also thank you guys, because everybody here is a supporter of this organization. This number is something you all should be proud of, and you should be applauding yourselves about too, so thank you. So, if this was 2012, what is 2013? Well, we're gonna keep on getting bigger. You know, it's still about scale and making sure that every teen out there is taking a social change action that they're passionate about. But as Nancy said, with the saffron effect, it's also about impact. It's also about making sure that we are really, truly contributing to the cause spaces that we are playing in. So, how are we going to do that? I'm going to take you through our calendar, but first, I want to talk about very briefly a structural change that we've made that I think is really relevant and really awesome. So, I'd like you to meet your campaign specialists. And man, aren't they good looking. So for the first time in DoSomething.org history, we're having campaign leads are focusing on one or two cause spaces and specializing in that. They will only run campaigns on that. So if you want to talk to us about bullying in the cocktail hour coming up soon, you should talk to Greg. If you want to talk to us about discrimination or international, you should hit up Christina. If you want to talk about sex and relationships in a not creepy way, you could talk to Alyssa. Also, far in the middle there is running our education campaigns. All the way on the end over here is Hillary, who will be doing environment and animal welfare. This is her first day, so please talk to her and grill her. Just like ask her everything you want. And then next to her is Sydney, who's handling all of the health issues for our team. And the reason we're doing this is, again, we want to make sure that we're actually contributing to the cause spaces that we're in. And when inspiration comes or an event happens, because we have these specialists now, our campaign team members will be able to pull out what are the issues in the cause space that affects our audience, what teens think about it, how they can actually take action on it, and even beyond that, what badass experts and nonprofits and for-profit organizations are already in this space that we need to partner in. It's going to enable us to act quicker and act with better quality. So please, ask us about what you're interested in. So, if these are the specialists, this is the campaign calendar for 2013. It's a beautiful thing. It's my best friend. We hang out all the time. This is the first half of it. That's not the whole campaign calendar. It's this, actually. But this year, we are running 25 cause campaigns. And I'm going to go into a couple that we're really excited about, but just to talk briefly about kind of what our philosophy on the team is. We want to make sure that we have an action for every teen out there, and that means giving campaigns on the causes that they care about and doing it so they could take action in the ways that they want. We're not the type of organization to say, hey, you have to do this. I mean, we respect them too much for that, and frankly, if you say that to a teenager, they're going to be like, oh, I just can't do that. So what you'll see here is a color-coded, and I'm not going to go into it, you could feel free to quiz me on it later, but we have campaigns on education, on environment, on animal welfare, but we also have different types of action you could take, from badass, I'm going to run a huge drive, to using your computer to create social change. So, one of our favorite campaigns that we piloted last year that's coming back even bigger is a campaign that kids really care about. One of the biggest issues our teens care about, animal welfare. And they should, because every year 3 to 4 million animals are euthanized in this country. I mean, that's crazy. It's a ridiculous amount. And one of the best ways to make that stop is by creating that. That's what you gotta do. I knew I could count on you, Sarah. Sarah likes cats, if you want to talk about that. Bad pictures for shelters decrease adoption rates. If you get better pictures of animals on their websites, you are much more likely to see higher adoption rates. So this summer, we're rerunning Pics for Pets, where we are sending teams out to local shelters to take the cutest pictures of animals and then share them on their social networks. And what I love about this campaign, what is so awesome about it, is it's like the combination of all of these great ways that you can make social change. We have the kids who are getting to the shelter and they're taking the pics and they're negotiating it. But then we also have the kids who are like social media mavens who are then taking that action and using it to get the pets adopted. So it's one of our favorite campaigns and we're really looking forward to running it. Another campaign that we're going to rerun this year is Pregnancy Text. How many people are familiar with this campaign? Just out of curiosity. Okay, so a good amount. 1 in 3 teenagers, women under 20 in this country will become pregnant. 1 in 3 before 20. So teen pregnancy is a huge issue. And it turns out one of the best ways to decrease teen pregnancy rates is by talking to teenagers about how their current life will change, not how their future life will change. So it's not, you're not going to get into college. It's, boy, you can't play Call of Duty because you got to go clean up some duty. That's the effective communication strategy technique. So we also know, as you just heard, that they like to text message. So we created this campaign where you could impregnate your friend's phone with a sassy phone baby that will text you throughout the day telling you how your life would be different if you had a baby as a teenager. There were tons of poop jokes, lots of poop jokes. So this was a huge success. 100,000 teenagers engaged in it. Even better than that, they talked back to us once every 10 to 20 seconds. They were naming that baby. They were like, "You're a devil, baby. I don't want to sit you anymore." And the best thing, though, beyond the interaction, is it also created behavior change. 1 out of every 2 teens who participated in this campaign was more likely to talk to their parents or friends about the issue of pregnancy. And that is one of the best ways to prevent somebody from getting pregnant before they want to. So it was a huge success. We're rerunning it again. But what's even better about this success is Nancy talked about models at the beginning of this session. This is now a campaign model. SMS gaming, we like to call it change of mind. And we know what works, and we're using it to roll out additional campaign experiences in 2013, like the activist text. So we were trying to figure out what to do about Black History Month. And we had Christina, our discrimination specialist, went in, and we figured out, a lot of the problem is teens don't feel like they have to learn about it in school, but it feels so distant to them. So this is an SMS choose-your-own-adventure gaming experience where you could walk in the shoes of a young activist in the civil rights movement and figure out what decisions would you make as a Black student, as a white woman riding a bus. What would you do, and then what would happen? And if you want to find out, you could text MLK to 38383. It's a super awesome campaign. But this idea of taking learnings from pregnancy text and now creating additional texting campaigns that will be effective because we know what works goes to other campaigns as well. You saw this photo. We love it. 50 campaigns, the most inadequately named campaign. We ended up recycling 1.3 million campaigns. It was a huge hit. And we were able to do that because we made it fun, we made it compelling, we made it specific. So we're going to be taking those insights and bringing them into our food donation campaign that we're doing in April with Walmart called Tackle Hunger. This is going to be the most fun teens have ever had in donating food, and it's important. Over 50 million families live in food insecure households in this country. So we'll be running a new food donation campaign in April. And then poverty is a major issue that interests our teens, and it's another cause that we want to work in. But one area that we haven't really figured out yet until this year is how to make that impact internationally. So we know poverty is a huge international issue, but it's very hard to have an impact of it when you're here without spending money. So we've been trying to figure out, how can we actually have an impact on this with spending money? And we go, well, we could actually help teens do the thing that they might be best at, which is spending other people's money. So we have a partnership with Kiva, where we will be giving teens $1 million in loans to send to women in international regions to help fund their businesses. And so this campaign is also launching at the end of second quarter, and it's something that we feel could be huge. So those are a couple. We have a lot more on the calendar. If you're interested in bullying, we have some really badass bullying ideas. I suggest feel free to talk to Greg about them. He's been working on them, and they're super cool. We have discrimination campaigns, more campaigns on animal welfare, on health issues. We're going to be rerunning Give a Spit. The key for us is making sure that there is a campaign for every teen out there. One of the things that I hear all the time, there's a lot of TED Talks and YouTube videos on how to create a movement, right? Everybody hears that. You create a movement, here are 10 steps to make a movement. The thing is, for teens and social change, the movement is already here. You don't have to create it. That's not what we're doing. What we are doing is we are tapping into the amazing energy and drive that's out there. And the way that we're doing that is by building campaign experiences for them on the causes that they care about, and letting them take action on the ways they want to take action. That's how you scale up huge while maintaining quality, and that's what we're doing in 2013 this year. So now, let's drink. Ladies. So, thank you. We're going to start the cocktail hour now. Please, like I said, please, if you have any questions about campaigns, I would love to talk with you. How you get to the cocktail hour is it is on the 11th floor of this building. You have to take 2 different elevators. So you're going to go out here to the elevators to the 2nd floor. You're going to walk around Clifford, the big red dog, which should be very nice because he's pretty awesome, and to the 2nd elevator bank up to the 11th floor, and we're in the greenhouse room. So that's how you get there. We'll be out there directing you if you need any help. Thanks, everybody.